this is Terri A. Wilson, and I'm here with another pop-up interview. If you've never seen one of my pop-up interviews, the whole idea behind it is I wanted the opportunity to go and talk to people about my favorite topic, books. My production budget for this whole show is zero. And so by using the beauty of the internet, I never have to leave my office, and I get to go travel all over the entire world talking to people about books, which is honestly like my passion. The best way to find out about pop-up interviews is to check out my website, terriawilson.com. If you are an author, a book blogger, if you're a service provider, like a book cover designer or an editor or something like that, and you want to be on the show, go to my website, click the link. The other way is to hit the bell and subscribe to this channel. And honest, that's the most wonderful thing in the world to do, because then every time I post an interview, you will get an email letting you know there's an interview show available. And I don't just post interviews, I have all kinds of stuff in mind for this whole channel. And while you're there, go ahead and push that thumbs up, because let me tell you, my guest tonight, you're going to love her. And you're going to want to push the thumbs up. So just trust me on it. Just go ahead and do it. I'll give you a second. Hit the bell. Hit the thumbs up. All right, let's get going. Tonight's guest I have is Marianne Rice. Hi, Marianne. How are you?
Hi, Terri. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Why don't we start off with a little bit about telling us about what kind of books you write?
Sure. I write contemporary romance, and as of right now, all my books happen to be in series. I have 4 or 5 different series out. They're all standalone novels, though, so you can read them out of order. Mm-hmm. I never intended to write a series, but I start a book, and I love writing about families and friends and communities. And next thing I know, someone in the book in that story needs their own story, and mm-hmm. there the series is born. and my books take place in New England, Maine, New Hampshire areas, mountains, coast, farms.
Okay.
Where
So by contemporary, are they stories that are happening like right now in 2019, or are they a few years older, or what is contemporary to you?
Yes, contemporary is modern day. So, I mean, my books that came out 5 years ago, I guess 2014, but yes, contemporary and modern day issues. Of course, those keep changing.
Yeah.
I don't get too political in any of my books at all, but yes, real world, real problems, real people. I love sometimes diving in when I'm reading into the fantasy world, but I like writing about real people, real situations that could actually happen and occur.
Okay. Now, a 5 series, right? You said?
I think so, yes.
And are any of the series done?
Yes, they all. So my first series that came out, my McKay Tucker series, is about 3 brothers. And then I have my next series, my Wild Sisters, is 3 sisters. And those are 3-book series. My Rocky Harbor series is 4 books. It's done, but I could get a 5th one out there. I've had some readers asking me about one of the other characters. So I haven't written that one yet, but it could be done, but I could add one more. Okay. And I also have my Well-Paired series. Right now I have 4 books out in it, and I still have a few more coming. So that series I'm still working on. And then I have a Christmas series that I just started. Last Christmas was the first book, and each holiday season I'll have another book in that series.
You know, gosh, what was it? Not this past Christmas, but I guess Christmas 2017. I came across a series of books, I think it was 7, that 7 different authors wrote and released all the same day, but the stories were kind of like they all went together. Mm-hmm. And I've never really been much of a sappy Hallmark Christmas type person, but I read these books, and now I'm obsessed with Christmas books. Like, yeah. I want to read all the Christmas books. And I even thought about, wouldn't it be fun to just release a Christmas book every month? I mean, who cares if it's not Christmas?
Right.
I just think that might be
just July, right?
Yeah, I think that might be fun. Or it's like a whole, like you would release 11 books that would build up to Christmas, and then the 12th book would be the Christmas book, the finale of the
So almost each month have a January book, a February book, a March book.
right. Right.
So
Well,
that's
now that you say that, oh my gosh, probably about 15 or 16 years ago, there was a YA fantasy series, and it was named January, February, March, April, May,
oh,
June. And the whole thing behind it was in January, something happened, and all the adults were like, if you were 21 and older, or if you were 10 and younger, you were killed off. And so it was just these middle group of people that were left. And I totally forgot about that series. But we're not talking about those. We're talking about you.
that's
Everything great about Marianne. So if you have all these series with all these different books, the first thing I have to ask is, because I know as a writer myself, one of the things I struggle with is coming up with names.
Oh, yes. Very hard, especially I'm a teacher. So I teach high school English. I've been teaching 22 years. So this is like my bedtime, and I'm dressed in my pajamas, hair up. I'm ready for bed when we're done here.
Guys, this is a pajama party. I told you.
Yes.
You never know what's going to happen. So you can't see, I've got my pajamas on down here, but you can't see anything down here. So you never know what's going to happen in these pop-up interviews.
I have my blanket, my little heart blanket in my lap here.
Okay, wait.
I was sitting by the fire, but I just finished my ice cream. It's either wine or ice cream. I had ice cream in a mug tonight. I just finished that.
All right, so here now I got my blanket, so now we're good.
Perfect. Okay. Yes. So this is how I look at home. Now I don't even remember. Oh, names. So I've been teaching for 22 years. So a lot of times names will come up and like, ooh, I had a student with no, I can't do that name, or I might really like a name. And then, sometimes I might really like that student. Like, that's kind of weird. I can't write a book when I currently have that student name. And it was harder, I think, in the beginning. Now I have so many students, I have so many names. I know somebody with every single name. So I'm able to separate the two a little bit better. But it was even the same. I have 3 children. When we were pregnant and trying to figure out names, I could associate them with someone, something. So it's hard. I used to use the baby name books or go online to come up with name ideas. And now sometimes I might have a student with a name and, ooh, that's a good one. It's not a very common name. I'll file that away for later. And maybe in a couple of years when you've graduated and you're out of sight, out of mind, I'll use that name. Mm-hmm. It's impossible. Now I have students who have the same names as a lot of characters in my books, and it is what it is.
What, you teach high school, you said, right?
Yep.
What grades particularly?
11th and 12th English. So American Lit, World
22
Lit.
years it's been 11th and 12th?
For 4 years, I taught 7th and 8th grade. So 18 in the high school. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was an English teacher in my previous life too. I taught English in the classroom for 5 years. Then I was a librarian for 12 years. And then I spent some time teaching teachers. Nice. And I did some stuff at the middle school, but it wasn't like, I wasn't a middle school teacher. I was helping out, do some different things and stuff.
Right.
So I have to ask you, just because I'm very curious, what novels do you teach at the 11th and 12th grade these years?
So depending on my American Lit, I love American Lit. It's my favorite class. So I usually go through the time periods. We start with the Crucible. Okay. And so the play, Salem Witch Trials, and we live in Maine. I'm about an hour and a half from Salem, Massachusetts. So every year for the past 18 years at the high school, I've been bringing my juniors down to Salem in October. We read it right in September, so we're done in October. That's the highlight, definitely.
Oh, how fun.
And then we go through, yeah, it is. We go through the romantics of Thoreau and Emerson and Poe and Hawthorne, and then end up with Huck Finn, Mark Twain. And so right now we just finished the Great Gatsby. So we're now into modern times, even though the kids don't think 1920s is modern, that's still modern literature. So we do Gatsby. They like plays, so we might do A Streetcar Named Desire.
Oh, I love Streetcar Named Desire.
Love that play. Some years I have students who they don't like reading out loud. They're not into the play, so I'll skip over it. But I have a really good group this year. I think they'll get into it. So really in that class, it's the classics. In my other junior lit class, we the kids who aren't as avid readers, right now I'm reading The Things They Carried, which really engaging with a lot of the students. So that's great. My world lit class, we just finished Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, because that ties in with our world literature. Probably going to do Animal Farm or 1984. So we have so many. I like to change it up every year, otherwise I get bored.
Both of those, Animal Farm and 1984, how appropriate for our time periods that we live in right now.
Right.
And that actually makes me think about the power of fiction. I'm a fantasy person. I'm a fantasy guy. I like romance, but I love my fantasy. And I think about like Gene Roddenberry when he created Star Trek and some of the things that he created in Star Trek and how similar there are that are things that are right now.
Right.
And so then you also think about 1984, or of course, the big popular one right now is the Handmaid's Tale. Yeah. And these books were written a long time ago, but they have parts that it's like, what came first, the book or the idea? Did somebody read some of this stuff and think, oh, let's do that? And you think about like with 1984, is it 1984 or Brave New World where the guy is in the trap with the rats?
That's a Brave New World, I believe.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And then I was watching, I forget, a spy movie or something like that. And they used rats to torture somebody. And they had them in a device that was very similar to that book. And it was just, you got to think about like the power of fiction in these books that just, even though they were written, like, let's go with the Crucible was written a whole long time ago, or The Scarlet Letter, my favorite during that.
I love Scarlet Letter.
Oh, my favorite during that time period. And you think about how could any of that still relate to today, but it does.
It does, yes. I mean, just even starting with the Crucible and with some of the strong themes there, we talk about how just fear and suspicions, how it destroyed that society. Right. And we still have that today. And I remember when 9/11 happened, and sorry, I don't know if you can hear my dinging phone, I can't turn that off, where the fear from back then from the Salem witch trials, and actually that went into McCarthyism. So we talk about that when Arthur Miller wrote the book in the 50s. And then even today, you see someone of a certain race or religion, or I use the example back in right after 9/11 happened, and we were supposed to go to a wedding and get on the plane, and my husband was really nervous about flying, and so that brought up some great discussions even in my classroom where if you're on a plane and you see someone from some other country, and are you automatically nervous that they're going to be a terrorist? And that's so wrong. Just because they're from whatever nationality might have shot somebody and now they're on the news or bombed or whatever, that doesn't mean that whole group is like that.
Yeah.
But that's how it was back in America, in Salem 1692, as well. As they feared witches, they feared the unknown. That fear just completely destroyed the society. So but absolutely connects today.
Yeah, and I think it's just so, I was just talking with somebody about this earlier, and we were talking about that's the privilege that we as authors have, is to go out there and create stories that connect and that move our readers. There's so many books that are out there, but there are like gazillion readers.
Right.
And someone needs to read your book. there is someone out there right now tonight who needs to read your book.
My books. Yeah.
Well, any books. Well, of course, we all want to read your books, but any books. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many readers out there, and we need to write the books, and we need to get them out there and get them into the hands of readers, because they're want it, you know. And it's exciting. I think this is an exciting time to be an author.
And there's so many, people need that escape, whether it is the fantasy or the romance
Absolutely.
or the historical, or they want the nonfiction. It is great, because there is something for everyone now. And if you want something more humorous, if you want something deep and more passionate, there are books for everyone. When students say, just, I hate reading, no, you just haven't found your niche. You haven't found the genre that's going to speak to you, whether you want to read to learn, you want to read to be entertained, you want to read to escape. But yeah, reading's the answer for everything. And you can learn in a simple children's book. You can learn in every book. There's something to take away.
There's at least once every week, I'm using the expression, something like, I can't remember exactly how it goes, but there are bad days even in Australia. From Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I always think about that, and
not if this Hemsworth is down there, though.
But I think you're right, and I think especially with romance, and you were talking about, addressing the things that are happening today.
Mm-hmm.
And when we write fiction, it gives people a chance to think about things without even knowing they're thinking about them.
Right. And that's what I love to write as well. I think that's just why I like to write, not necessarily what I know, because all the issues that are happening in the books that I read aren't necessarily anything I've experienced. Maybe I've experienced them through reading another book, or from a friend of a friend, or sometimes even a student's family that I've heard, oh, they're going through this, and then I use that as inspiration to put in my stories. But I do like to write about real issues without getting too deep and emotional, and definitely not political there. But there definitely is death, and there's sickness, and there's abuse. I don't like to write about it, but I do have, like, my Rocky Harbor series follows a family where all these the teenagers were foster children, and they were adopted mostly when they were teenagers. So they just have wagons full of baggage, so much baggage. So I don't like to focus so much on the baggage, and when I'm writing that's there, I like to write more about how they overcoming it. And despite all the adversity that they've faced, this is what they're able to come out on top, happily ever after. That's what I love about romance. Everything is happily ever after, but it's a tough journey to get there.
Yeah.
So I usually have some sort of issue in every single book, but that's not my focus. I don't want to get too deep. I don't want to trigger. I don't want to insult or offend anyone who has gone through an experience like that, where, some of my characters, their parents might have been murderers or rapists, but I don't write about that. It's just, that's what they did. They're in jail, let's move on. Or drug overdose is a huge epidemic right now. And so how do you deal with that when that's happened to somebody you love and in your family? So I incorporate some of those bigger issues, but the focus is always character driven. I love the internal conflicts, because we all have internal conflicts, and maybe we don't have these crazy. I love reading suspense. That's a lot of that, those external, there's the, murder, and there's chase, and there's this and that, and I don't have a lot of that in my books. It's more so what's going on inside, and which is scary sometimes, getting inside someone's head. But we all have emotional baggage. We all have some sort of internal conflict. So I like focusing on those stories and everybody coming out happy in the end.
Yeah, those sound like the ones I like to read. So I'm going to be checking your books out. And you guys go check them out, but don't check them out till we're done.
Not yet.
So when you have different series like this, and you have all of these people that are, and they're unique, do these characters live in your head? Do you see them as real people?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's funny, they're so alive in my head when I'm writing their series, and I feel like, oh, I can never let go. But then as soon as I start writing that next series, I'm done. I'm moving on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they do. They're with me until I'm done writing them. It's really hard. There was at one point, I think it was 2 years ago, I had one book with my editor. I was writing one book in a different series, and I had another one with my editor, and then I had a backlist that I was trying to promote there. And like, these are not only 3 different books, but these are 3 different families and series, and I can't do that. I need to focus more on one series. And I know there are some authors who can write multiple books at a time. You know, today I'm going to focus on this book, tomorrow or next week I'm going to write this one. I'm not there yet because I like to live in my series, whether it's the community or the family. So right now I'm more so in so I kind of lied right now because I'm actually doing that. I'm living in my well-paired series where I'm still working on those. I have 4 out, 2 that are written that will come out later this year, and I still have more to write. But then I'm also finishing my Christmas book, so the one that will come out this Christmas, the second one of that Christmas series. So I'm living in that Christmas world, but I just had a release 2 weeks ago in my Well Paired series, and it's hard. So my writing in my Christmas book has taken a back burner because I'm still living in my Well Paired series. So it's definitely hard to do that. And I know there are some authors who manage it so well by hopping from project to project, but I usually stick with one series at a time.
Well, and you're with working full-time in a full-time family, and then you're writing, do you feel like you manage all these balls up in the air very well? Or are you stressed all the time, or?
I'm told I handle them really well. I'm busy. I don't know what it's like to be bored. I can't even comprehend because there's always something to do. My children I have a senior, she's almost 18. I have a freshman who's 15 and a son who's in so my 2 girls are in high school and then my son is in 7th grade. They're involved in sports. So there's always the practices, the games. Last week March is our slow month. So we had doctor's appointment every single day last week. But it's time management. I really don't watch much TV. I don't read as much as I like to read. Summer vacation, we just had our February break a couple weeks ago. I flew out to San Diego to visit my sister. So I had a plane time. I got to read on the airplane and the airport. I'm like, I'll take all the layovers. That means I can read. So I binge read when I can. And then it's okay, the family's watching TV. I'm going to have my laptop and I'm going to work on either my social media, my website, writing. It's hard for me to write with everybody around. I will escape a little bit more to do that. So I guess I manage it pretty well. I'm able to write 3 books a year. That's my goal. I don't do definitely don't do daily writing goals. I don't do weekly goals. I don't even do monthly goals because my kids drive my schedule and I never know what it's going to be like.
Yep.
I mean, I know this season is crazy. I know this is the window. I know this season gets crazy and my summers are a little more relaxing. So I chunk them. I chunk my writing into basically thirds throughout the calendar year. And but yeah, it is time management. But when my husband works a lot and so I've got to balance it all, there's really no choice.
Right.
So calendars everywhere. And yeah, I just figure it out.
Yeah, you just do what you got to do. You do what you. Now, I notice on the back shelf, you have what looks like an award or a plaque with like maybe a feather plume and an inkwell. What is that?
That is actually from the Wisconsin romance writers. They're writing one of the writing contests, and that's actually for False Start, my very first book that was published. It won an award before it was published. I think that was probably about a year or so before it came out. So I have some other paper awards, but that's the only little nice cute plaque I have. So I have some of my other papers. I haven't framed them, but yeah, I like my Quill Award.
Yeah, that's nice. Well, congratulations for that. How long have you been writing?
Well, I started writing when I was home on maternity leave with my son, who's born in April. So teacher schedule, that's great. I had off until September. He was a newborn. My other daughter was 2. One daughter was 2 and the other one was 4. And I thought, hey, this is a great time to start writing. It took me 2 years to write that. I don't know. I had time.
Okay.
Yeah, I that's when I started writing. It's actually was the summer our schools when laptops were first. So it was my son almost 13 years ago, and teachers, we got our first laptops. So I'm like, oh, cool. I got to pick it up and I was home. Like, I have this laptop. I'm just going to start writing the story. I was reading, I don't know, 70, 80, 90 books a year is my escape. And then in the process, just had story ideas running through my head. So it took me a couple of years to write that first book, which will never see the light of day. I didn't know anything about anything. But it was after I wrote that book, I just started Googling. I think it was Google back then even. How would you even publish a book? What do you do after you write a book? And then that's when I stumbled across the Maine romance writers. I didn't even know that was a thing. I loved reading romance and it wasn't even False Start, it was a different book, was a romance because I wrote what I read, what I'm familiar with. And so, yeah, I stumbled across the Maine romance writers. I'm like, oh, this is a thing. They have meetings. And so I've been with Maine romance writers for about 12 years, at least 11 or 12 years now. And I love Romance Writers of America and traveling and going to different workshops. I've just learned so much from the writing community. I definitely could not have done this without the support of that community.
Now,
and they pushed me.
do you feel like when you first started writing, how far out of your comfort zone were you?
Well, I think I had, not counting that first one, I don't even remember what it's called or where it is. After that, I actually wrote 6 books before I even queried any publishers, because my goal at that time wasn't to be published. It wasn't, I can't say I always dreamt of being a writer. No, it never even crossed my mind. I just wrote I had 3 kids under the age of 4. It was my mental escape, was writing these words. So yeah, so publishing was not something I ever thought about. And it was just, it was a hobby. It was just, hey, something for fun that I'll do. I'm not taking too seriously. But then I discovered Maine romance writers and the New England romance writers and the New Hampshire romance writers. And I just started attending meetings, and I revised that book a few times, and then I realized, no, let's just scrap that and start a new one. So I wrote for me, and I had my first series, my False Start, False Hope, False Impressions. So that series was written, done, and I never even sent it to any publishers. I never queried it out because I knew I wasn't ready. I didn't have time. My kids were then, preschool age, daycare age. I chasing them around. And at that time I was really only writing in the summertime. I couldn't multitask with little babies and toddlers around. I needed them asleep. And I like to sleep. So I wasn't staying up late at night to write unless it was summer and I was off. But so I wrote with no intent of publishing, and it was my writer friends that I met who pushed me, like, you need to send this out. And then I probably had at least 2 books written in my Wild Sister series done, or well underway, when, all right, fine. And so I started querying out that False Start, and I started entering some contests like that one behind, just to, I don't know. And I did not have a critique partner. I never let anybody read it because I was embarrassed. Like, there's this vulnerability of
Yeah.
somebody read your words. And then I also felt like there was this high expectation because I'm an English teacher.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't what we do in English class. It's not, I may have been teaching for however many years, but we don't teach how to write a novel.
Mm-hmm.
Research papers and literary analysis and all of those other pieces, absolutely I could do, but this was brand new learning. So I felt like, I felt more intimidated because of my English background,
Yeah.
that the stakes were higher. So anyway, so they pushed me, and I would get rejections, and whatever. I didn't care because I didn't have time to be published. I knew there would be real deadline. I'm a stickler for deadlines. I don't like to meet them. I like to crush them. And I know to make realistic deadlines where if I can't do it, I'm not even going to set that as a goal. So I didn't actively pursue publishing until maybe 2013, 14. So it was probably 5-6 years into my writing that I started, because I mean, draft after draft, I revised those books so many times, and then I got sick of them, and that's why I needed to write something new. So I know I'm babbling now, and I remember your original question, but
No,
how I
you're
got
fine.
started.
It's great. This is what I like about these interviews in this format, is because it does give people just a chance to just talk about what's on their mind and what comes up. But our time is up. I'm sorry. We have to come
It's
back.
bedtime, so that's okay.
The best thing to do when you're finished with this interview is to go to Amazon. Your books are on Amazon, right?
Correct.
Go to Amazon and go to all the other places and go buy her books. Just go buy all of them, and that way you can read them in order. Because
Perfect.
Terri said to do it, and Terry's always right.
Sounds good.
Sometimes. Well, Marianne, thank you so much for coming or for interviewing, talking with me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. Again, like I said in the beginning, the best way to find out about the pop-up interviews is to go to my website, and you can hit the link that says pop-up interviews. And if you want to be on one, if you're if you're a reader, if you're a book blogger, if you are an author or a service provider, I want to talk to you, especially book bloggers. I'm really having a hard time getting book bloggers. They just don't seem to want to do it. But I promise. Was this painful, Marianne?
No, it's pajamas and everything, so
Awesome.
It's easy.
And blankies. We have our blankies tonight. So, I mean, come on. Hit the little bell down below, and that way you can subscribe to my channel and get an email every time I upload a video. And make sure you give us a thumbs up. I'll make sure and post all of Marianne's information down in the details of this video, as well as my information. And until we talk again, have a great time.